Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
So welcome to this week's A Coffee with Karen. So this is our weekly show out on Mintwave Radio and also the podcast A Coffee with Karen, where I interview other coaches, consultants, therapists or healers, because that title doesn't really explain who they help, what they do, what they solve. So this is an opportunity for them to share that with you and share a bit of their story. So this week we have Anne. Anne, if you'd like to share with the audience, who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's a pleasure to be here on a Coffee with Karen podcast. Love coffee, Karen, by the way. Great title. Yes, I am Ann Visser, and I have been equipping individuals and organizations for well over 20 years to help them communicate in a way that aligns with their values because of my experience in life and marriage. So I am a certified John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer, and with For Better Forever, which is the company that I co-founded with my beloved husband, Malus. And so I train, I teach, I coach in areas of communication, leadership, relationship, mindset, makes such a difference, and personal growth. And so I have trained couples. I have worked to help them communicate more effectively, to help them resolve conflict. I have worked with young people, training young people. The program I just was speaking about on Friday is how to avoid falling for a jerk. And it's been written, good one, right? It's been written by Dr. John Van Epp. I love taking that program into schools and into arenas where people are single and they want to learn what does a jerk look like and how do we have healthy relationships. I had the opportunity to teach values-based leadership skills with the John Maxwell Team, traveled to Paraguay with John Maxwell himself, danced on the dance floor with him, and it was just a wonderful time to see transformation happen there. I've seen couples transform their lives. I've seen individuals transform their lives. I wanted to see, what does it look like when a country is working on transformation? And that's what Transformation Paraguay was all about.
Wow.
I've also gone into jail and trained women in helping them I wanted to support their personal growth, to support their sobriety. And I've had the just wonderful privilege to go into a home for addicts as well on a regular basis and train there once a week. And it's such a privilege. They can stay there for a whole year. So I get to watch the transformation as I go in week after week. I see the transformation that happens for them as they work from the inside out. I believe change happens on the inside. I can change my partner. I can change my location. I can change everything else about me. But if I don't change on the inside, nothing really changes. I take me with me wherever I go.
That is so true. So many people are looking to blame, and it's down to this and it's down to this, which is so disempowering. So when people finally realize that it's a good thing, it's because of us. I mean, sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow, right? Get my words out. Yes. But it's empowering because then we have the power to do something about it.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. We can make new choices. We can learn new skills, which is what I needed. I do what I do because I needed it so badly, Karen, in my own life. And so I do what I do because of the change that has happened for us. We've been married for 42 years. And together with his family, we farm on beautiful Prince Edward Island in Canada. We have 5 adult children and 11 beautiful grandchildren. There's a fun fact for you. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Very busy at Christmas. My goodness, who's cooking?
I love to cook. I am my mother's daughter.
Good job. Good job. So can you share a little bit of your story? How did you come to be doing what you're doing? How did you get to this place?
So I fell head over heels at 15 with this tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy who's very confident, and I wanted to know what was different about him. I shamelessly chased him because I wanted a date.
Go girl.
Yep. 3 years later, we married, and I still remember the photographer said to us, "I've never seen a couple look at each other the way the 2 of you look at each other." So we were so crazy in love, Karen. And then fast forward, we had 5 children in 6 years. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I was very sick that first month that we were married. I was pregnant the first month we were married, and I was so incredibly sick. So, just on the couch sick. And so, this is a tough way to start a marriage. And now I know that in those first 3 years of marriage, we're forming habits, we're forming patterns of the way we communicate and the way we conflict, the way we fight. And we weren't doing a very good job of it. And on top of that, my husband is a farmer. And so he works long hours. And so I felt like I was a single mom at home. And the problem, though, the real problem was we didn't have the skills we needed to really be able to communicate well and to be able to have a good fight that would actually pull us closer together instead of drive us further apart. And so eventually we came to this place where there was a great emotional space between us. And I wanted more. And I was at the end of my rope and we were on a date. I don't know why these things happen on dates. I don't know. We were sitting outside of our favorite restaurant in our farm truck. And I said to him, "I can't do this anymore." And I could see the panic in his eyes. And he said, "What do you mean you can't do this anymore?" And I said, "I can't do marriage like this anymore." I said, "We just keep hurting each other over and over again. We don't resolve anything. I'm so hurt." Something happened to him that night. I had tried to have that conversation before, but I didn't do a very good job of approaching it. But something happened that night. He really heard my heart. And he started to talk about what was going on in his heart and how hurt he was. And to be honest, Karen, I missed that. I was so busy with our 5 children and my own pain that I missed what was going on in his heart. But we made a commitment that night to do what we needed to do in order to get well because we knew what it was like to love each other. We knew what it was like to be in love. We wanted both to get back to that place. And so the very next day, I went to my mother-in-law's house. She had a library full of self-help books. And I pulled off her shelf, Making Love Last Forever by Dr. Gary Smalley. And as we started to implement, as we applied, because nothing happens with knowledge, right? Knowledge is fun, but
Yeah.
nothing changes with good ideas unless we put it into action. And as we started to implement the very good things that Dr. Smalley was teaching us, we fell in love again. And now it was a decision that night. It's not a fairy tale. It was a decision that night. And then it was walking out the process of, okay, here are the lessons we needed to learn. The very first lesson he taught us was conflict is the doorway to intimacy. I did not want anything of it. I don't like to conflict, and neither did my husband. And avoiding conflict, we learned, is very detrimental to all relationships, whether it's at work or whether it's at home. Avoiding conflict it's on the way out of relationship. And so we cannot have healthy relationships and avoid conflict. And so we needed to learn some skills to be able to conflict in healthy ways. He said, Dr. Smalley said that conflict is the doorway to intimacy. So in other words, when we conflict well, I get to see into you and you get to see into me. Intimacy, as into me you see. That's powerful.
Incredible.
That's
Yeah.
powerful. Yeah. So I was like, okay, if this is what we need, I'm going to learn those skills to be able to conflict in a better way. What I have discovered is that these skills are vitally important for work and for home. That when we don't conflict well, resentment builds up because there's something that I'm not telling you that is important to me. You can't even know what is important to me if I don't share that with you. And that happens at work too. When we don't have those conversations, we don't understand each other. We don't know each other. How can we possibly care about that if we don't know?
Right. So I suppose people are avoiding conflicts because they don't want that confrontation, but it's about how you do it. You do it in a specific way, right? Rather than blame and you've done this and you've done that. There's a way to do it. So so there's a win-win at the end of it, I suppose.
That's exactly right. And that's what we talk about we create we solutions, right? We create the we solutions, that there is a win-win. I get to see to you. So something shifts in the conversation when we have these I call them pivotal conversations. There's a shift after the conversation because there's either a shift in you, in me, or in the relationship. And even if I don't like what I hear, I learn new information that I need in order to move forward. For instance, if we had had that pivotal conversation and my husband had said, I don't care. I don't want this either. That would have still been a shift. And I would have needed to know that information in order for me to move forward.
Right. We just it's very easy, isn't it? We can get so caught up in our own lives, what's going on with us. And that can be difficult to see things from that other person's perspective. And I suppose, we all do it. I'll put my hand. Yes, I've done this in the past, and expect them to be a mind reader.
Right? And that never goes well, Karen.
I thought everyone was a mind reader. I didn't think I needed to say anything. But I suppose that is the thing. And like you said earlier, those feelings of resentment, and they might not have any idea at all about what this was over. And you're here getting pent up because we do create stories, and we do create stories on our head and what they're thinking and the reasons they're doing it. And we can have it so completely wrong. And I'm sure we all do get it all wrong in those circumstances because it's coming from us until we have. And it just goes to show communication is everything, because everything is about relationships. Like you say, it's not just about close intimate relationships, but relationships with your siblings, with your children, with your parents, with your work colleagues. It's all the same. So hanging on to resentment anyway is, we all know, that's detrimental to us, which is crazy. Form of self-harm, I call it. It's a form of self-harm. Why would you want to do it?
Oh, that's beautiful. Let me write that down, Karen. That's good stuff. It truly is a form of self-harm.
But we all do it. And if it's not explained to us, this stuff should be taught in schools.
I agree with you 100%. Why? You know what? When someone is suffering at home, they're not good employees. We don't work well. We can't think clearly when we're suffering and struggling at home, when we're not having those important conversations at home, when things are not going well at home. It's all I can think about. Because this relationship is so vitally important, whether it is with our children or whether it is with a husband or whether it is with our siblings. Those relationships are so important. And the tighter we get to that, like it's the core, that one relationship is so vitally important. But then we go further out. Those relationships are important too, but they impact our work. We need to do well at home so we can be good employees, so we can be good business people.
It all has a knock-on effect. Like you said, you just brought up something just then with and especially probably stronger when it is somebody that you are very emotionally attached to, because there's going to be more feelings involved. But we will tend to, I don't know why this is, but we tend to just focus on the problem rather than focusing on the solution. That seems to be such a common trait for people in general, in all areas and within all types of relationships, which is obviously not helping, because the solution's not going to come from looking at the problem. It's going to come from looking up and yeah, having those conversations, asking the questions.
What a beautiful thing to ask a good question.
Ah,
When we ask a good question, I feel like you care about me, right? When we ask a good question, like, tell me more about that. Help me understand. I wonder what's happening for you right now, because you're a little off today. Good, curious. I call them curious questions, not to know, but to care.
and to listen.
And to listen, to understand, rather than to listen, to respond.
Mm.
We had so many lessons to learn to get better together. But I want your people to know that love is all about connection. And when we can connect this deeply, it's so beautiful. Karen, we've been married 42 years now. And just recently I said to him, I am so glad that you were willing to walk through that desert time with me, because now it's so sweet. It's so rich. It's so deep. And I am so grateful that, and he just returned and said, you walked through that with me too. And I'm so glad you did. It's a mutual walking. But sometimes we need to walk alone for a little while in our own personal growth until the other person catches up with us. I do think we give up too soon, and many times. And if we can work on our own personal growth, the other person has the opportunity, it's hard, but they have the opportunity to come along with us. Eventually, with these conversations, we do understand the shift or the change that we have in the relationship or in our own growth itself.
And as long as both are willing to change and they're not in that victim mentality or playing the blame game, because there's it's a two-way street, right?
It is. And I think it's very important to get help in that season, because it's easy to play the blame game. It's easy not to take responsibility for me, because the person who is most upset gets the most attention, but maybe there's a reason why they are so triggered and need to be able to help work through that, so that then the other person can begin to take some responsibility. So when we were in the middle of this season, Karen, I remember my husband looking at me and saying, and what's your responsibility in all of this? Because he was more highly triggered. And so it looked like he was the problem, but I was a part of the problem too.
Right.
So once he was able to come down, then I was better able to look at myself and take responsibility for myself. And honestly, part of my challenge was, because he was overreacting so strongly, I was like, baby, talk to the hand. This is not my problem. This is your problem. You deal with it. And that does not come off as very compassionate.
No, it's not, it's
E-
not going to help, even if we feel that in the moment.
Even if it's true.
Yeah. And
It's
I
not.
suppose that's what it is. What you've just said there, it's is quite, I think, major, is that, even if there is something that's happened, it's not that thing. If you'll be prepared to move through it, again, it's we've got to stop that blame part of it. And yeah, even if that's true, well, what can we do now? I suppose it's how do we move forward from it? Because I'm sure, we've all done things or not reacted in the right way or whatever. It's never going to be just one or just the other. It's got to be both.
I remember very distinctly standing in our bedroom and saying, I am, to myself, I'm going to care about this, whatever this is for you. I'm going to care about this. But of course, he'd gotten the hand a whole lot, right, before this time. So I needed to build some trust in him so that he could begin to talk, so that he could begin to go within, because he wasn't even able to go within in the beginning. I needed to build that trust in him, and then he was able to go within. That was a process. That wasn't a one-time conversation. I'm in this with you now, baby. What's happening for you? That was a process of me showing and speaking it out. I care about you. And then I started to ask him these questions. And these are the questions that I give my clients. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What is really worrying you here? What are you concerned about? And what is it that you need? That is the most beautiful question. What is it that you need from me right now in this moment? Sometimes the things that he needed were so simple. And I was like, are you kidding? This is not rocket science. I can do that for you. Right.
Yeah, well,
And
it could
so,
be the little things. It's little things daily are just gonna add up. So I suppose it quite often, all these disagreements can be coming from what could look like, when you step back, can be very, very small, but they build up because you haven't had the conversation. So these little things over time can just grow in our story to be this massive thing, and it could be something really, really simple. So it's definitely worth having the conversation.
absolutely, these pivotal conversations are essential for every relationship. And so, let's talk for a minute about how maybe we should talk about why we kind of shy away from these conversations, because I think that matters and that's important.
Mm.
Is that okay, Karen?
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
okay. I think my women, the women in particular that I work with, they are so kind-hearted and they are so agreeable. They don't like conflict. And so they move away from anything that looks like conflict. A lot of them are church girls. I work in the Christian community, and they're taught to be good, nice church girls. And nice church girls don't conflict. So they want to keep the peace. That's not good for relationship.
Mm.
Keeping the peace just for the sake of peace is not helpful. We need to be able to have these pivotal conversations. Another reason why we get stuck and we shy away from it, I think this is certainly, we didn't even know how to be vulnerable. It's we don't want to be vulnerable. And
Mm.
when we're not vulnerable, the other person doesn't know who we are. And the way to be vulnerable is to go to those deep levels of communication where I'm telling you, this is how I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling disrespected because when I come home every day from work, the dishes are all over the place, not cleaned. I need some help here. I'm feeling like we're not a part of a team. Feelings help us to go deep into relationship, and they soften the conversation for the other person, which is interesting to me. I remember a conversation I had with my husband. We were driving on slippery roads. I live in Eastern Canada. It gets icy here and cold. And we were on roads that were, I thought, treacherous.
Yeah.
Coming around a sharp turn, and he was going too fast for me. And I said to him, I don't feel safe when you drive this fast on roads that look like this. And
Now
he
that's a
immediately,
much better way of saying just slow down.
and
Because
that's the
you're
way I,
telling somebody.
that's the way I tried it so many times, Karen. It didn't work.
No, yes, but
And,
yeah,
and
that
he
makes a lot of
he
sense.
he immediately slowed down and said, I want you to feel safe with me.
Ah, what a turnaround. So that you could have had completely different responses there, even though on the face of it, you're saying the same thing. But
Yep.
again, it's the way you say it,
Yes.
your choice of words, and I suppose that feeling,
The feeling.
that's
Yes.
passive. Mm.
Yeah, and the need, I need to feel safe with you. And
Mm.
his response was immediately he slowed down. That never happened before, Karen.
He wants you again. I suppose men, they want to fix things. So again, by you just changing the wording slightly and saying that is your need, you need to feel safe. All of a sudden, yes, they're going to want to come and be the savior.
Yes, well, because he cares, right? And
Yeah.
safety is important to a man. A man wants their woman to feel safe with
Yeah.
them, especially. And so that's the number 2 reason we don't want to be vulnerable. We must be vulnerable. And the closer we are to that relationship, the more vulnerable we're going to be. So of course, we're not going to be as vulnerable with the person at work. That's going to bring you really close, and you may not want that. That's called an emotional affair. Yeah. So we're not that vulnerable with the people at work, but we are with the people closest to us that we want to build a relationship, friendship. There needs to be some honesty there, or we're not going to be friends. There needs to be that vulnerability. But the third reason why is my women, they just don't know what to say. Give me a script. I don't know what to say. And I think part of that's because we wear so many hats. We keep ourselves so busy. We don't give ourselves margins or space to think and to reflect. So sometimes we don't even know how we're feeling. That was me. I didn't know how I was feeling. That's a skill to be able to go within to understand, oh, right now, I spoke recently and I was driving away from that event and I thought, oh, got a lot of feelings going on here. What's happening? And I thought, oh, this is a vulnerability hangover right here. I'm feeling it. I just gave myself away here in speaking, and I'm feeling that vulnerability. And sometimes we just don't know what we're feeling. So we don't know what to say. When we get into a conversation, we have to be able to share those feelings and what it is that we need. We may not always get it, but we need to know it. Otherwise, we can't express it, and we make our people mind read. That's criminal.
Yeah,
criminal relationship offense.
Yeah, don't do it because you're going to get it wrong.
And the number 4 reason I think we hesitate to go into these pivotal conversations is because they didn't go well in the past. So many times we had that conversation in the car, you're driving too fast, and it didn't go well. Sometimes you would speed up.
Well, I suppose none of us like to be told what to do. So instantly it's like resistance.
Yes.
So, I don't like being told what to do. So I might respond in a certain way. However, just turning that and saying that you don't feel safe and that you need to feel safe on these icy words or icy roads, or however you put it, is completely, I can see that it's completely turning it around. You're not going to have that resistance of telling somebody what they should do. Total different feeling place, which makes sense that the reaction would be a completely different thing. Something so simple.
So simple. Here's another one. I used to say to him, you work too much. See, hear the accusation?
Yeah, again, you
condemning, you work too much. And just lately, so we're in harvest. He's a farmer and we're in harvest right now. So last night he was home around 10:30 or so. And he's up early in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I said to him, I miss you. I miss you. What a difference.
Totally different feeling place there. You could totally different.
Yeah, like you can just feel it. You can just kind of rest into it, right? Like, I miss you. And so learning these are skills that we had to learn in order to communicate, in order to conflict better, to have these pivotal conversations, and even when not to have them. Like now, it doesn't need to be a pivotal conversation that you work too much. I just miss you, right? But there's skills that we need to learn in order to be in healthy relationships. I would like to talk and share with your people how to prepare for pivotal conversations. It's so important. And that's my tip number 2 is prepare for your next pivotal conversation, because often these conversations, they don't just come up once. We've had them multiple times, like the drive too fast conversation. It happened again and again. So we know it's going to come again, right? This important conversation that needs to be had, but we haven't been doing it very well. So once we know and identify, this is a conversation I want to have, the first C is, we have the 3 C's of pivotal conversations. The first one is to check emotions. Because I think one of the reasons why we sabotage them is because emotions are really, really high. And the first thing out of our mouth, you drive too fast, is not very helpful. And there was a whole lot of fear behind that. And so when we can sit down and give ourselves a little bit of space to journal through those questions. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What is troubling me? And what do I really, really want? when we journal through that, it can help to settle down those emotions that we're feeling. And it can help us to come with great clarity to that conversation. We don't even need to use a whole lot of words in order to have the conversation. That's incredibly helpful, by the way, because we know exactly what it is we want, and we know where it is we want to go. And we can check our motives. I think it's really important to check the motives of our heart, because the motives of my heart are going to bring the intention forth for the conversation. I remember a conversation I had with my daughter. She's an adult at this time. We're sitting around the kitchen table, and I said to her, I have to have a conversation with our son. And then I blurted out, I just don't trust him. And my daughter went, ooh, Mom, you better check that. That's awful. It's like, oh boy. Okay. I knew as soon as it was out of my mouth, I was in trouble. I knew I had some work to do. I went to what I call my thinking chair. It's the place where I reflect. It's the place where I meet with God. And I went to my thinking chair and I started to ask myself these questions. And really, really quickly, it came to me, oh man, you're stuck back in 2005 when we had some significant challenges raising this son of ours. And my emotions were there. And my intention was to protect my heart because I don't trust him. Interesting, right? But he wasn't there anymore. He was an adult now. He's a beautiful man. And he wasn't there. And as soon as I recognized that, oh, you're stuck back in 2005, I was like, okay. I had that conversation with him later, and it was just seconds, like minutes. It was so short. It was so easy because I knew where I was. I knew the intention of my heart. I did need to set some boundaries with him, but it went so beautifully because I checked and checked my emotions. So that's the number one. And I think that's where we kind of mess up a lot of times, is that we don't check those emotions and check those motives of our heart. So we sabotage the conversation before it even starts.
Well, if we're in a heightened negative feeling space, nothing pretty good. It's never going to come out right. So I love what you said there is relax.
Yes.
Take time out to bring it back down. And then, like you say, you're thinking clearer. I mean, I suppose we do it with our children, don't we? We tell them to, go and count to 10 or sleep on it. So it's so interesting. I find that, I suppose we're all like this in a way. I can be very good at giving out advice and actually taking it myself within those certain situations can be slightly different, and this is why we do give this good bit of advice when they're children, but it applies to us too.
Yes, wholeheartedly. We need timeouts too.
The naughty step, I'll be honest.
So that's the first C of pivotal conversations, is to check emotions. The second one is to communicate what you've just learned about yourself, your feelings, your thoughts, what's troubling you, and what you really want. Really clear, really clear. So communicate those thoughts, feelings, and concisely and clearly. Let them know what it is that you really want, and then invite them for feedback. We don't want it to be a monologue. Nobody likes to be preached at. We want it to be a dialogue, and then hear their heart. Hopefully hear what they're feeling, what they're thinking. And I even look for those things. So what's he really feeling here? And what's he really thinking here? What's the real problem? Like, what's troubling him? And then, okay, what is it that you really want? And I love to ask that question, like, what is it that you need from me here? Incredibly powerful to ask those questions. I was speaking with a woman, we'll call her Julie. She was working in human resources for the same company for over 20 years. Now, she was happily married. She loved to laugh. Great gal. But she was tired because she had been moved. She was working in 5 different locations. She was traveling frequently for her job. But 2 years ago, she said, my company merged with another company and I got a new boss. Now my company is leaner and I have more responsibility. This was really interesting to me. She said the new boss, he manages differently. He leads differently. He said, and then she went on to say the culture of the company is different. And I don't agree with it. This is interesting. She said it's more about relationship than about production. It's not about relationship anymore. It's more about production. And she said, I don't feel appreciated anymore. Your people need to feel appreciated. And then she said this most fascinating thing. She said, funny thing, I could work these crazy hours for my previous boss because I know he cared.
Ah.
Now, she said, I just show up and I do my job.
Oh.
And I thought, yeah, people are going to work hard for the boss when they know the boss cares.
Oh.
She had tried to have this pivotal conversation multiple times with this current boss, and it wasn't going anywhere. And a short time while later, she left that job. And by the way, I think we lose our best people at work when we don't have these pivotal conversations, when we don't listen to our people and address the real issue, the real challenges that they're feeling. Because maybe he does care about them, but for some reason, he is struggling in his skills and communication to be able to let his people know, I care about you. I know you're working long hours. I care about you. What can we do? What is it that you need? We can learn those skills so that we don't lose our best people at work.
Well, I think so, unfortunately, because they haven't maybe had the training, that there can be, if the ego gets in the way, and so they may not, that may to them seem like be perceived as being weak. Would you agree?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
the culture of being the boss and being a manager or whatever. Acting like that and having those conversations to them, if they haven't had that kind of training and the understanding of how this is going to go, they may perceive that as being weak. But yes, I wholeheartedly agree. I think the majority of people would, yes, we all want good pay, but being appreciated is higher. In the past, I've always gone above and beyond for people if I have felt appreciated. And like you say, if there's somebody that is quite obviously not, then you're going to go and do what you need to do. And I think that can be a major problem with so many companies. They're not getting the best out of their work people because they will just do the very minimum that they need to do to get their paycheck at the end of the month. Whereas you're more inclined to stay behind and help on specific things. I can remember, not that I've had many jobs in my lifetime, I've pretty much worked for myself, but even in a self-employed capacity, I can remember one manager I come from the fitness industry originally, and purely because I'd helped out on a weekend, a thank you card in the post, handwritten. What would that have cost, right? I know I'm here in the UK, so we're talking pennies here, right? Not cents. Literally, 30 pence, to postage stamp, to send it. Just that one thing. Well, of course, if I was asked to do anything else, I'm going to do. Not for the money, but because I was appreciated. It goes so far, and if companies don't get this right, man, people will stay with them longer. I mean, it's crazy that this isn't taught within companies. I'm sure it is now. I think they're getting there slowly.
Well, we've heard of the Great Resignation. People are leaving work, and I think a big part of that is because people are not feeling appreciated or cared about. These pivotal conversations, they say up front what's going on. Leaders need to lead, and they need to lead these pivotal conversations. You said earlier that we don't learn these things in school. Why don't we learn them in school? And they even call them soft skills. Man, if you're losing your best people, that's not a soft skill. That's essential.
It's absolutely essential for the future of the company.
you have to train people all over again to do what this person is doing. You're losing your best people. You don't even know who's coming in that you're training again. And for business owners as well, these pivotal conversations are really important, and so important to let your clients know, I appreciate you. Like, we're not on a superior level with our clients. We're peer to peer. And especially as coaches, we need to be that peer to peer, that we're working together in this challenge that you're facing, whether you're not feeling good enough, or whether you're not being treated well at work, or whether you don't even know who you are. I've had some women say, I just don't know who I am. Whether you're looking for better communication with your husband or your children, whether you're dissatisfied with life, your people, we're peer to peer. We are not superior. We are not, as coaches or counselors, above somebody else. I think it's really important to have that in our heads, that we're working together at this. And you are going to have your people for much longer. They don't want to leave you because they feel so appreciated and cared about. It's so important to value our people.
Well, it's even if these companies are purely thinking, relationship, that's not important, but even financially, you're going to be in a far worse, like you said, how much is it going to cost to some of these companies that it's very transient. People, that's not a good sign, is it? Why aren't people staying? And it's going to, obviously, and the same with clients, with coaches, clients, it's going to cost a lot more money to get a new client than it is to keep another client, right? So even with that side of things, forget the emotional side, and that is the right thing in general, isn't it?
It is the right thing to value people. We say, John, I've taken this from my mentor, John Maxwell, whom I just so appreciate, but he says we are people of value. So we don't devalue ourselves. We are people of value who value people. I love that.
Oh, I like that saying. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't have to devalue myself in order to value you. We are people of value who value other people.
Love that.
Yeah. So the third C is to create those we solutions that we talked about earlier. So the first is to check emotions. The second C is to communicate and clarify. And that third C is to create those we solutions. And we talked a little bit about that, and how, when we see the other person as they're the problem, and I'm going to blame you and you're responsible and it's all your fault, then we don't go into that pivotal conversation with a good mindset that we're going to actually solve this problem. You're just going to verbal vomit all over somebody, right? Yeah, we need to come into that we solution. And we talk about buy-in in business. You get better buy-in with your people when you're working with them to find the solution, and they're not the problem. The problem with the other person being the problem is I become the good guy. They become the bad guy. And when I'm thinking that way, I am not going to create any solution that's going to work, because I've got all the answers, and that's a problem. That's my problem.
Absolutely.
Instead,
against resistance.
Resistance, and we want to see them as a part of the solution. And so to have that dialogue and to work together to find a solution that works for both people, I think that's so incredibly important and valuable, so that we can move forward together, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because it's, whatever the outcome, it's going to be done in a far softer way, and win-win regardless, right?
Yes, win-win regardless. Yeah, and these pivotal conversations, it's so fascinating. Since I've been studying and working with people on communication, these pivotal conversations happen every single day. They could be small, and they maybe don't make much of a shift or change, because these pivotal conversations create a shift or change, maybe just in your own heart, or maybe in the other person, or maybe in the relationship, their situation itself. But these pivotal conversations, they create a shift or change. So they're happening every single day, every single day.
And that's what we all want, right? Bit by bit.
Yes.
Everybody wants things to improve. And yet, if they're not having conversations like that, they probably just don't even realize why things aren't changing. And, and even with, if it is at work, at the end of the day, a lot of people are at work for a lot of time. Do you not want it to be a more pleasurable experience rather than nobody wants conflict and nobody wants to have those feelings of that they're holding on to, which is going to be very detrimental to themselves, right? That's not healthy. It's not healthy to build up all those negative emotions. So
self-harm, you called it.
Yeah, it is. It's a form of self. We're crazy, aren't we, people? We're crazy. We're crazy. A lot of the things that are going on in our world, we are the ones that are creating it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only when we can and accept that. And yeah, some will struggle with that in the beginning, but that's when it changes. And I love the fact that, yeah, it's all about, you've got to go in, you've got to go inwards first, because you're not going to change them. If you're having that kind of conversation, you should be doing this. It's never going to happen. So great advice. So the 3 C's, I love that. Love that.
Yeah, I've tried the other way and it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
In marriage or outside of marriage, in relationships, it just doesn't work. With our kids too, and then at work too, of course. It does not work. When we have these conversations, in the end, we know what we have and we have clarity about how to move forward. And that's incredibly empowering, like we talked about earlier, Karen, when we know how it is that we can move forward. For instance, you've had multiple pivotal conversations with someone at work, your boss, and you just know that nothing's going to change. So you have 2 options. You can stay and kind of manage that somehow, or you can leave and then you can work on your exit strategy. What do I do next?
Like you say, the prep, you've got to prep everything.
Yes.
Have an exit strategy then.
Yes.
So Anne, who do you love to work with? Who are you looking to work with?
Yes, I primarily work with Christian women. I will work with women or men. I also work with couples. I have a pre-married class helping them to prepare for marriage. I work with singles, and my course is Dr. John Van Epps, and it's how to avoid falling for a jerk. Love that. It's so good.
I've fallen for a few, I have to say. I need to read that book.
It's so good. It's so good. And I also train and teach. I have a membership for Christian women called the Sisterhood Journey Membership. And I work one-on-one with clients as well to help them get the life that they want. Some of my clients are saying, I just don't know who I am. Some are saying, I have no confidence. Some are saying, I don't have any purpose or meaning in life. And I had one client say to me, I don't just want to be happy. I want to pursue God's calling for me. And then she said later, I'm finding my voice and I'm understanding who I am. I love that. I love the coaching process. It's so powerful. I had another woman that said, I am so indecisive. I just can't make my own decisions. She said, people are walking all over me. Now, she said, this is her testimony. She said, now my mind is clear and I see the change in me and other people are seeing that change too. I love when that happens. My people are seeing the change in me.
Yeah, absolutely. When others can see it, it's just even more validation. Fantastic. So yes, it's wonderful to see transformation. So for the listeners, you can't see the link here. It's www.4betterforever, and that's the number 4, not written for, 4betterforever.com. Come and get in touch with Anne. So for you, you said that you came into this because of your own relationship. So what was the turning point? What made you choose to do this as a career? And did you say at the beginning that you do this together with your husband?
No. Well, we started out together and he realized that farming needs to take his is a priority now. So I am working with my daughter, though. She is my digital expert and my copywriter. So, yes. And what started me on this journey was shortly after when we started to get well, very soon, we had new hope. And we said, we can't keep this to ourselves. We have to give this away. Whatever this is that we've been given, it's such a gift. We have to give this away to other people because we could see that other couples were struggling, other women I could see were struggling as well. And this personal growth journey and what it did for our marriage, we just had to do something. So we started a nonprofit. We worked for many years together, teaching classes and working one-on-one with clients. And then a local doctor saw the work we were doing, and he invited us to meet with clients in his clinic. And then from there, 6 years ago, I went for coaches training and then became certified as a John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer.
Fantastic. Wonderful. John Maxwell, I know the name. So name a book. What's the most common?
Okay. He has written over 100 books.
Oh, goodness. What's his most famous one? I know.
The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Okay. I'm with you.
15 Invaluable Laws of Growth is one that I teach. I love to teach that one. So many. Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. That's another great book on communication. It's not about talking and listening so much as it's about connecting. How do we connect? It's a great one.
So great communication skills. This is what we all need. This is what everybody needs in whatever relationship. As we said, it's not just about partners, it's about everything. So you're covering the whole lot, really.
Yeah. So within our membership, we have the people talk, which is the pivotal conversations. We have the leadership talk. We have the self talk, which is so important, right? It starts there. How I talk to myself determines how I show up everywhere else and every day.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the 4 lanes of communication.
Because that is it. It's so interesting, isn't it? That we would never dream of speaking to another person in such a way as sometimes we can actually speak to ourselves.
Yes.
And that is the most important conversation you need to be having with yourself. That's going to start from there. That's the foundation. Yeah, right.
Which is why that journaling exercise is so powerful, Karen, because what am I thinking? What am I feeling? That journal exercise helps you go within to understand how you are talking to yourself. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Well, because otherwise we've created these habitual patterns. So we've got programs running, we're all running around all day long on autopilot until we understand that that's what we're doing, and we practice to consciously change that. If you want to change your program, if your programming is fine, then great, carry on, keep going. You're going to save energy and you don't need to change. But if we realize that maybe some of the program is not serving us, then it's not going to happen overnight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things aren't going to change overnight. We've got to, again, like, I love that. Yeah, journaling is so important because it's going to make you become aware. And then you can do something. Awareness is step 1.
Absolutely. Yes.
Unless we are actually aware of what it is that we're doing on a daily basis, but because otherwise we will just go out, and our body, it wants to be lazy, doesn't it? Really, it wants to save energy all the time. So it just wants to, we'll plug in that program in this situation and just run. So being aware, being conscious, and I love that, checking in. How are you feeling?
Yeah.
What do you need right now? Love that. Questions. It's all down to questions again. And the most important questions are the questions we ask ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. And there are good questions to ask ourselves. And then there are really bad questions, like, "Why am I so fat?" is not a good
Oh, yeah,
question.
not helping.
But these questions, "What am I feeling? What am I thinking?" They're so helpful because they help us go within to understand how to move forward in our communication with other people and in our communication with ourselves.
Yeah. And then it's going back to the programming, I suppose. The moment we actually ask a question is that moment we become into the present moment, because we've got to use that thought process to evaluate. And because if there's no questions being asked, again, that program is just running until we get stopped and I don't know, how am I feeling? So really, really important. And at the end of the day, we've got these amazing tools, although sometimes they can be not so good tools. But you can just even put little reminders on your phone to just check in with yourself, because otherwise the day can go by and you've been on autopilot again. So just sort of little reminders to just check in. Yeah, how am I feeling? Love
I'm
that.
a I'm a Post-it note girl, I
Ah,
confess.
I've got pink and orange. I've got Post-it notes absolutely everywhere. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. I mean,
I
these are
mine's here's a mindset hack. I posted a Post-it note, "I get to." So I noticed my self-talk was, "Oh, I have to do this and I have to do that." I was like, wait a minute. I get to."
ah
There's a good mindset hack for you.
again, it's just a switch. That's all it needs. It's
Ye
amazing, isn't it? And well, that's why words are so powerful.
Yes, yes,
You think
exactly.
on the face of it that, well, we've just said the same thing. No, because how does that make you feel?
Mhm.
Yeah, when I've got to do this, I must do this, I should. All of this doesn't make you feel good. Whereas, I get to, I get to. That's a little bit more exciting, right? Oh,
I can yeah, I can hear the ball and chain as you say it there, Karen. I have to.
yeah, I
I
have
have
to. Yeah,
to.
I should. I should. That's weighing you down. Oh, I get to. It just lifts you up. It's a totally, again, it's all, it just goes back to, it is, the same old, all the self-development people it says the reason why they're saying the same thing, because they're all right. Our
Yes.
thoughts cause feelings, our feelings manifest
Yeah.
as actions and behaviors. They're
And
all saying the same thing.
yeah.
But if we don't know how we're feeling and we don't know what we want
Mm.
or what you need, then how can we get what we want or what we need? This is what I say to my daughter. My daughter can be very indecisive, shall we say. She's a bit more of an introvert. So I've had to learn that, okay, I have to deal with her in a slightly different way. If I'm asking a question, I need to warn her, give her time,
Yep.
come to me when you've had a little think about it, rather than, well, what is it you want? Well, what? And then I'll joke now and say, well, so if you don't know, who knows? Who does know? Who does know what you want?
Oh, I
So
love that, Karen. You're holding space for her to be able to think.
yeah, in all honesty, that's something that I actually learned from interviewing somebody like yourself about introverts and extroverts. And I
Mm.
did not know. Again, it's awareness. So where I was concerned about her and going to her, it's like, no, leave her. She's okay. She needs her
Mm.
space and she's happy. Whereas I'd be worried
Yes.
and then going to harass. Now I know, okay, that's how she works. No problem at all. So it is the understanding when we're aware of these things. I never knew the difference, how an introvert needs to recharge and how an extrovert. So I'm just going by me and thinking, oh, there must be something wrong. No, there's nothing wrong. We're
Yeah.
just different and it's
Yeah.
all okay.
Beautiful. Beautiful, Karen. What a difference it makes. And what difference has that made for your relationship with her?
Oh, massively. Massive. Massive. Now it's my other daughter who is an adult now and so doesn't live with me.
Mm.
Now that's helping with that because she is different to her as well. Again, we have to deal with them. We
Yes.
have to communicate differently.
I always thought that kids should come with manuals. I complained to God about that, but I never did get a manual, and I have
You know
5
what?
of them, and they're all wonderfully unique and different and
Which
lovely.
is which is brilliant, isn't it? I don't know why we have this. We all want this one manual. There's never going to be one manual because, well, she's not a full introvert. She's an introvert like this. We're all unique, and this is, I was sort of slightly against the naming. I don't like labels.
Yeah.
Because I believe we're all, some of us, although I'm an extrovert, I've got introvert tendencies. I like my own space. And so we're all just sort of a mix of all these different things that makes us unique.
Yes.
So all these labels I don't like. However, having that understanding of, okay, then maybe I should be like that with that person and that with that person. So again, awareness. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, Anne. It's lovely speaking with you. And I learned a lot there as well. And I hope the listeners did too. So get in touch. We've got all Anne's details if you would like to connect. And the rest of you, I will be back next week with a Coffee with Karen. Bye for now.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.